You're welcome back. Of course, let's settle for the details. And of course, you are live on X Spaces. Your comments are welcome there on Facebook, on YouTube, and of course, on my Joy Online. So let's start from the Supreme Court, because the court has, by a 4-1 decision with Justice Asare Dakun dissenting, has dismissed an application brought before it by a private citizen, Theodore Kofi Atakwote, who, among other things, asked the court to place an interlocutory injunction on the Committee of Inquiry constituted by the President to probe and potentially remove the Chief Justice Gertrude Tokoni from office. The plaintiff also asked the court to suspend the operationalization of the warrant of suspension issued by the President against the Chief Justice under Article 14610 of the 1992 Constitution. It was the case of Ibrahim Anyas Mohammed, who represented the plaintiff, that though the President exercised a constitutional duty, but his failure to publish a constitutional instrument regarding his decision to suspend the Chief Justice renders that action unconstitutional. After listening to arguments by lawyers for the plaintiff and the Deputy Attorney General, the 5-member panel made up of Justice Paul Bafuboni, Justice Isifu Imoro Tanko Amadu, Justice Yoni Kolende, Justice Henry Anthony Kofi, and Justice Asare Dakun described the application as unmeritorious and dismissed same. The court had, within the interval of about an hour, dismissed similar suit filed by the Center for Citizenship, Constitutional and Electoral System that also sought to nullify the procedure triggered by the President to potentially remove the Chief Justice, with the argument that the President failed to give copies of the prima facie determination to the suspended Chief Justice. While the founder of the Center for Citizenship, Constitutional and Electoral System, James Kwabena Domfe, in a brief remarks after the judgment, says he will go to the conclave with his lawyers and decide on how to proceed. Well, a private legal practitioner has also been speaking on this matter and described the ruling as good for the country, young democracy, and its judicial process. So we'll hear from them shortly, and then we'll try to see if we can take a flight to the court and bring you what transpired in the court through my colleague Latif Idris, who will join us shortly. All right, so let me bring in Latif now. So Latif, good afternoon, welcome to the program. First, walk us through, there were 2 cases before the court today. Walk us through them. If you can unmute for me, Latif, so we can hear you. Yes, Latif, good afternoon. If you can hear me, we want to understand what went on in court today.
Can you hear me also?
Let's take a short break and return with more here on the pulse. Well, let me bring in Latif. Let's see if we can connect to him this time around. Latif Idris, if you can hear me, I was asking what transpired in court today. We understand 2 cases were before the judges.
Yeah, Alton, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank goodness. Okay, so there were actually 2 cases before. There were a number of cases before the Supreme Court today, but the prominent one, which is of public interest really, has to do with the ongoing processes to potentially remove the substantive Chief Justice, her ladyship, Gertrude Tokoni, from office. So 2 applications were brought before the Supreme Court. They all are looking forward to essentially the same net result, if you like, because ultimately they want the processes that have been triggered by President John Dramani Mahama following the receipt of the 3, and now we understand 5 petitions asking for the removal of the Chief Justice from office. They want the entire process to be quashed by the Supreme Court. Essentially, the long short is that they want the entire processes to be annulled by the Supreme Court. What they brought before the Supreme Court today had to do with interlocutory injunctions for the Supreme Court to make a determination of. So we know of one Theodore Kofi Atta Korte, who is a private citizen. He was asking for interlocutory injunction on the committee and also a suspension of the operationalization of the warrant of suspension issued by President John Dramani Mahama. Essentially, that is the thrust of Theodore Kofi Atta Korte, a private citizen. Then we also have an application from Center for Citizenship, Constitutional and Electoral System. They are also asking for the president to do similar, the Supreme Court, I beg your pardon, to undertake similar move to suspend the ongoing hearing of the committee. Now, the court had within a matter of an hour came to a final determination on those particular, those two applications, I must say.
Right.
Now, for Theodore Kofi Atta Korte's legal representation, they asked for the interlocutory injunction to be placed on the committee because, according to the lawyer for Atta Kofi Korte, the president ought to go to parliament with an instrument, which we know would take about 21 days before the president can arrogate the powers, because the president is not a worker of the judicial service system, is not an officer of the courts. He doesn't have the powers to essentially issue a warrant to suspend the Chief Justice. And so he ought to have come through with an instrument through Parliament before, once it is matured, the president could then go ahead to arrogate those powers to himself.
Right.
According to the lawyer, the president didn't do that, and so the entire process that has gone on must be deemed as null and void by the Supreme Court. Those were the thrust of Theodore Kofi Atta Korte's argument. And if you recall, Elton, the Ghana Bar Association had raised similar concerns during their mid-year conference,
right,
that the president is violating the Constitution because he didn't get this instrument through to Parliament to mature before taking or making that determination. And so the president should come again. Essentially, those were the calls by the Ghana Bar Association. But today we had a private citizen bringing it before.
Yeah, I was saying that they actually threatened to go to court to get a court to enforce that particular demand that they sought in that news release. Now, with the court's decision on this particular matter, that will render whatever decision they may come up with mute.
Exactly, Elton. So, yes, the GBA made that pronouncement, but today we had a private citizen making meaning of the pronunciations of the Ghana Bar Association by bringing it to the appropriate forum, if you like, for a hearing on that particular subject or concerns raised by the Ghana Bar Association. And the decision has now been made. So the concerns raised by the Ghana Bar Association today has been defeated in this particular judgment, which was a 4-1 decision. We will come to that later on.
Right.
Then there was also the case for the Center for Citizenship, Constitutional and Electoral System. This organization is founded by Kabila, Kwabena, as we all know him as Kabila.
And Latif, if you can reposition yourself, we are losing you. I mean, we are losing you gradually. If you can reposition yourself, we can hear you loud and clear. I don't know what is happening, but Latif's voice is drowning, and we are losing him. Before we get back to him and to find out a few other things that happened in court today, the founder of the Center for Citizenship, Constitutional and Electoral System, James Kwabena Bomfe, in a brief remarks after the judgment, said he will go into conclave with his lawyers and decide on how to proceed.
Supreme Court. Well, they have spoken. I will go into conclave with my lawyers and we will advise ourselves. Right. Appropriately.
Right. So we let's see if we can get Latif back on the line. and then hear him talk about few things on this matter. Let's take another break and return on the pause. Let's move to some other stories now. And Ghana's public debt stock could drop significantly by about 10% due to the rapid appreciation of the cedi based on a new projection by JoyNews research desk. Since the start of 2025, the Ghana cedi has strengthened by roughly 18% against the US dollar, making it the world's fastest appreciating currency since April 2025, according to Bloomberg. Now, analysis from JoyNews research team suggests this surge is set to ease a country's external debt burden, potentially reducing the current 726.7 billion Ghana cedis by as much as 10%. Now, let's get to understand what is informing this. And of course, lead researcher Isaac Kofi Ajaminta joins me in this. So, Kofi, what really is going on?
Well, so interesting thing happening in the exchange rate market. And now we are talking about the rise of the cedi against the fall of the dollar. It used to be the other way around. We used to talk about the rise of the dollar and the fall of the cedi. But one thing is that the cedi is really gaining momentum and strength against the dollar. And yesterday, trading day began with $1 to 12 cedis, 37 pesos. And by the time we ended the trading day yesterday, $1 was selling at some 12 cedis, 10 pesos. Today we began with 12 cedis, 10 pesos, but we're not talking about 11 cedis, 85 pesos in terms of the exchange rate. So the big question is, what is really happening and how is this going to affect the debt position of the country? And that's what we've been analyzing. And if you do the math since the beginning of the year, the cedi has actually gone up against the dollar by some 17.6%. If you add today's appreciation, we'll be hovering around 18%. But what is the story behind this, 17.6% appreciation against the dollar? Now, you can see where the cedi has traveled in terms of its exchange to the dollar since the beginning of 2024. The story is different. What is happening is that we are returning to where we left off somewhere January of 2024. Just that this time around, that sort of appreciation wasn't sustainable.
Right.
But one thing that will catch your attention is a sharp decline we are seeing in the first 100 or more than 120 days or the first 4 months of the year, where even before we were preparing this graph, it was 12 cedis, 12.1, 12 cedis, 10%. But now we are talking about 11 cedis, 85 pesos.
I mean, the interesting thing is that around before midday it was 11.9.
Exactly.
And then it's come to 11.8.
Absolutely. So
which means by the close of business today, it may even come down even further.
Absolutely. We are possibly projecting that it could end the day around somewhere 11 cedis, 80 pesos. But I mean, the good news is that this could affect this mountain you see on the smart wall, which is Ghana's debt stock, which has been the bane on the country's economy. And you can see now we are owing about 726.7 billion Ghana cedis. And the reason why we are projecting that this figure could come down is because of the external component of the country's debt stock, which now is in excess of 400 billion, Ghana cedis. Why? Because the dollar component is a bit stable, right? So if you look at the debt in dollars from January of last year to December of last year, you can see a very uniform distribution or movement of the external debt. And now we're talking about some $28.3 billion. But you could see that the exchange rate dictates how much this will be valued in cedi terms. So when you see the cedi appreciating, it means that the dollar component of the external debt is going to come down. But when it is depreciating, then we are seeing that it's going to go up.
You're going to pay more.
Absolutely. And in 2022, I remember November when the former finance minister, Kenneth Oriata, was delivering that, was actually presenting the budget. He made mention that in December or in 2022, the entire year, we added some 93 billion cedis to our debt stock, not because we were borrowing, but because the country's currency was depreciating against the dollar.
Right.
The story is different, this time around, and we are projecting that this could, reduce the debt stock by some 74 billion Ghana cedis. Possibly, maybe at the end of the year, if we are able to keep this momentum, we could be chalking some other, target.
Because 10% is very significant.
Very, very significant. Looking at it in
almost
the
a
time frame.
quarter of your debt.
Absolutely, almost a quarter of your debt. And in fact, if you look at the very short period of time, January to April, and the kind of appreciation the cedi has seen against the dollar, is able to afford you 10% reduction in your debt. If you're able to maintain this, and by the end of the year, if we are talking about some 11 cedis or 10 cedis, that could be a big, gain for the government. And in fact, looking at it on the side of interest payment on the external side, this could reduce it significantly and could reduce government, burden. Now, looking into next year and next 2 years, 2026, 2027, what you will see is that the nature of our debt restructuring, these 2 years are the peak years where we, service most of our maturing debt and all of that. Most of them are in, external currencies or, the dollar. So it means that if the cedi is able to keep this momentum, we should expect, the debt servicing obligation to ease. So what we are projecting is that the current strength of the cedi could bring down Ghana's debt burden by some 10% else.
And then the 10%, how much does it translate into in terms of physical cash?
That's about 74 billion.
74 billion cedis.
74 billion.
Because of the appreciation of the cedi.
I mean, if you compare it to 2022, we're adding 93 billion. Now we're estimating that it could go down by some 74 billion cedis, within this space that we are analyzing.
All right, Kofi, thank you so much for coming through. Professor Lord Mensah of the University of Ghana Business School joins me via Zoom for more on this. Prof, good afternoon and good time to have you here.
Yeah, good afternoon and good afternoon to our viewers out there. If you can hear me loud and clear.
I can hear you. And so this obviously is good news. Should we start jubilating or we should be cautious?
Well, it is a good news. If you look at the currency pattern over the past few days, it sends a signal that, yes, the currency is gaining its value. But then the question that we normally ask in terms of when you look at financial economics is, the swings over the past few years, we may have to take our time before we start jubilating because we've had a currency that has depreciated over the years as a result of heating, economic dynamics. And now new administration, has come in that has given us, that kind of conserved, posture for which the currency is responding to it. So we may have to achieve the lowest minimum level and then look at way forward if government starts servicing its external debt, how the currency will appreciate. But then we're not going to see, that kind of, depreciation that we used to witness that at a point in time, it went to 16.5. But then we're looking at somewhere in between, the 16.5 and then the minimum level that the currency can get to. Hopefully, it should be able to get around, 10, Ghana cedis per the dollar. Then in that case, it will find its level, coming up again to a level where we may assume, full debt service and then also hold up with, our export and import obligations over, the year. So we shouldn't jubilate now, but then in the end, there's hope because we are now, looking at the dynamics where the optimum level needs to be obtained. And once that level is obtained, we should be able to be decisive as to going forward, how the dollar levels are going to be.
The APSA, a leading bank, says that per their projection, we will end the year with 14 cedis to the dollar. And some have also suggested that because government is not spending so much, it is partly the reason why the cedi appears to be appreciating. Are these enough to say that it is the reason why we are where we are, or something more is being done to ensure the good run of the cedi?
Yeah, so from where I sit, I've heard people talk about, Trump's effect as far as, the trade war is concerned and all that. But we need to appreciate that the Trump's, trade war effect is quite, systemic, for which it affects almost every currency across, the globe. But then if you look at, the various currencies, each of them has, unique appreciation or unique depreciation against the dollar. That should tell you that countries like Ghana is doing something unique within the country, for which at the end of the day, it's affecting, the dollar in that manner, for which I can say the CD is appreciating at that level. But then if you look at it carefully, you will be comfortable to say that, look, policy continuation, identifying the right policy to deal with going forward, and then also, looking at the new policy on the corridor, which is the gold board that was formed, clearly seem to, hold up, the possible dollars that would have filtered into different spaces, not necessarily being accounted for in the bosom of the government. And as a result of that, that has, helped us to see this current appreciation that we are witnessing. So I can say that indeed Ghana is doing something unique, and that is why we are seeing this appreciation. If you go to our neighbors like Nigeria, even Taiwan, which is an industrial economy, they still have their currency depreciating against the dollar. So obviously it tells you that Ghana is doing something unique.
But can the gold board really be singled out for what is happening, knowing very well that the gold board has existed its existence has not even traveled more than 5 months, and yet,
right, you're right. But then you see the expectations that goes with it. Let's not downplay the expectations, because we're talking about finance minister giving us a signal of about 2.5 billion being raked in as a result of the gold board policy, and that should tell you that going forward, if you're an investor who has to deal with the dollar, you have to be really careful, because Ghana has started accumulating enough dollars to show up the possible demands that will go with it. So I can say that confidently it is part of the reasons why we are witnessing the kind of appreciation that we see on the market now.
Prof, hold it from. Let me bring you another view on this particular matter, and is the former technical advisor to the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, Member of Parliament for Tanonof, Dr. Gideon Boakon, who joins us also via Zoom. Dr. Boakon, good to see you. Good afternoon. Welcome. And if you can kindly unmute for me.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Doctor. So, according to Sami Jemfi, he says stringent monetary policy stance complemented by aggressive liquidity stabilization by the Bank of Ghana, and this was partly achieved through the strategic policy decision by the Bank of Ghana in March 2025 to increase the monetary policy rate by 100 basis points from 27% to 28%, and the open market operation of the Bank of Ghana. Second, fiscal consolidation by the Ministry of Finance and the restoration of investor confidence in the Ghanaian economy, anchored on fiscal discipline and prudent public finance management. And thirdly, robust forest inflow and accelerated foreign reserve accumulation through the unprecedented gold purchases and exports by the PMMC Gold Board, as well as enhanced foreign exchange inflows from cocoa remittances, among others. For him, these are the three key areas that is responsible for what we are experiencing in our forests, the strength of the city, if you like.
Well, let me say that, yes, there are different factors that drive the movement in exchange rate. It will not be right for anybody to say that the movement we are seeing in the CD dollar and the other currencies, the rate is basically one thing, just one factor. At any point in time, depending on the circumstances, different factors may lead to the drive in the part of the performance of a particular currency. In this particular instance, you cannot rule out some of the issues you just mentioned, because we have seen how the US-China tariff or trade wars have affected the performance of the US dollar. And so technically, if you're into competition with someone and something happens to that person and his performance goes down, even if you don't put up any effort, you start to have competitive advantage over that person. So that is there. There are issues about market sentiments. There are issues about investor or market reactions and all of that. But just as you ended your statement, one of the key factors that undeniably is contributing to the greater performance of the cedi now is the issue of gold and the role that gold proceeds is playing in the performance of the currency. Give or take, whether market sentiments, investor confidence, import-driven or demand issues, the bottom line of the performance of any currency boils down to demand and supply. And so the rule of thumb is that at any point in time, managers of the national pairs will have to ensure that there is adequate supply of the foreign currency, which is dollar, such that if demand is low, you have a higher advantage, or at any time that demand increases, you have dollars to supply. If you look at the trajectory and the time series data and what has been put out so far by Gold Board and government, it points to one thing, that there have been significant injection of dollars into the Ghanaian economy, effective March, April, and May. It has been so significant to the extent that in April, the government of Ghana injected $590 million into the economy. This is about $500 million.
Right.
This has not been the practice. And in fact, if you look at the previous years, for instance, in 2024, because of the IMF program and the conditions that ought to be met, government of Ghana had to build the international reserves to cover about 3 months of imports. By December, government had been able to build more than 3 months of imports. And until government was able to do that, the government of Ghana was restricted as to how much dollars it can intervene into the market.
Because of the IMF program?
Initially, it was $80 million. And then later the IMF brought it down to $60 million. But because government was able to exceed the 3 months of import cover of reserves target by December, it means from January 2025 coming, the government of Ghana had the luxury to inject so much of dollars into the system. And that is basically, other factors are there. But if you want to look at the weightier issues, the main factor driving the performance of the cedi is that government has enough dollars through the gold that we have purchased, and government is injecting almost every cent of these volumes of dollars into the economy. As to whether that is a prudent thing to do, the government knows very well that yes, you can do short-term measures by way of steroids to inject dollars into the economy to contain the currency. But that is not something to do on a continuous basis if you really want to ensure long-term sustainability of the currency. But basically, that is what is happening.
But again, I remember over the weekend, your former boss, the vice president, asked the NDC to point out one single intervention they've done that is responsible for the strength of the cedi. They've given you 3. And does that satisfy you that indeed something really is being done and that what is happening is not by accident?
Well, I think, to be fair, even if the government took a decision not to do anything, the fact that you can even decide not to do anything is a decision by government. So I wouldn't say the government has not done anything. But basically what government has decided to do is that on the back of the strength of the reserves that have been built by the previous administration, this government has the luxury to decide that I have dollars coming from gold. I won't add it to the gold reserves, or I won't add it to the gross international reserves, but I'm going to inject that into the economy. That is government decision. But mind you, it is important to acknowledge the fact that if upon assumption of office by this government, the previous government had not met the IMF requirement of having to have about 3 months of import cover of our reserves. No matter how much dollars this government could realize from gold, it could still not intervene in the market. So what has created the path for this government to inject in a month less over $500 million is the fact that the previous government took time to build the international reserves to the tune of about $10 billion.
For the 8.9.
Government has so much in terms of reserves, so they can decide not to add on to the reserves and push everything into the market to stabilize the city. That is government decision. That is what I'm saying, that as to whether going forward, that is what we have to do long term is another conversation. But the point ought to be made that if the previous government had not built the reserve, this government was going to be compelled by the IMF not to spend more than $80 million in a month by way of injecting into the economy. But that hurdle has been crossed by December of 2024 by the previous regime. And this government has inherited that. So it has the latitude to inject into the economy.
Because, in fact, as at the end of December, the reserve stood at $8.9 billion US. According to President Mahama, in the last few months that they've been in office, they've added on and currently stands as $10.9 billion. But the argument for a lot of people also is that government is also not spending. If government were to start spending, paying contractors, and living up to expectations in terms of the promises they've made to Ghanaians, the situation may be slightly different.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And not just spending. There is a expenditure misalignment so far as I see. And when Parliament resumes, we're going to ask a lot of questions. Mind you, in the 2025 budget, the finance minister said he was going to allocate something around 200 or 300 and something million dollars for the gold board to buy gold. Today, the amount of gold that this government has bought is close to $3 billion. So the question is, if the government budgeted for, let's say, 300 or maximum $400 million for the fiscal year for gold board, and gold board has spent close to $3 billion, where did that money come from? Did it come from the central government? Did it come from the central bank? We need to know. Other than that, what can simply be construed from this is that government is not spending, and the cities that we are generating by way of revenue that ought to go into critical expenditures to finance the ministries are rather being used to buy gold in the name of gold board and converting that into dollars and pumping that into the system. The finance minister ought to explain why he budgeted, let's say, $400 million for gold board, and in 4 months, gold board has spent close to $3 billion. Where is the money coming from? And they use cities to buy the gold, sell it, and get foreign exchange. And so it is not surprising that ministers in this government have started complaining that finance minister is not releasing funds to them. So that huge issue of expenditure misalignment is something that ought to be investigated. We need to understand where gold board is getting the $3 billion that they have used so far to buy gold from. All of us need to ask those questions. But clearly,
you are a member of the finance. You are a member of the finance committee. Even though Parliament is on recess, you don't have the fine details regarding the purchase of gold or the export of it.
Yes, we don't have the fine details. And like you said, it is the responsibility of Parliament to interrogate some of these issues. So we will shut them out. But I am also aware that some RTI, components of RTI have been invoked. Some questions have been, petitions have been submitted to the RTI by some agencies and bodies that I know, seeking to ask the Finance Minister and Bank of Ghana why they budgeted for less than $400 million for Gold Board, and in 4 or 5 months, Gold Board has spent close to $3 billion. We need to know where it is coming from. And aside from Parliament, once Parliament resumes, I can bet you we have discussed this. We're also going to ask. The Bank of Ghana is also yet to submit the forest reports to Parliament so that we get to know exactly where this is coming from. And we also need to understand whether or not Gold Board is trading in the foreign exchange market. Because all these interventions, because the $3 billion worth of gold that has been bought, it is not reflected in the gold reserves, because we left, the previous government let the gold reserves of about 30 tons, 30.5 tons, it has gone to just 31 tons. So not even a single ton had been added.
It's 0.9.
Then also the gross international reserves, the addition to the gross international reserve is far less than how much gold proceeds the government has gotten. So we need to understand that this over 2.5 billion that have been injected into the system through the purchases from Gold Board, through which channel did the government inject them? Did they go through the commercial banks, the central bank, or Gold Board is actually in the system also trading in foreign exchange, which is a suspicion that some of us have. But this is early days yet. We need to ask all of these questions so that we can fine-tune the whole arrangement. It is a brilliant idea to go for gold for forest. I've heard a lot of talks about Gold Board, but mind you, let's get it right.
All right.
Gold Board is just the vehicle, the principle and the understanding to buy gold in cities, sell it in dollars to get foreign exchange. It's a brilliant idea that was proposed by Bawumia at the time that he said that. They were laughing at him, they criticized him, they said it was not possible. But thankfully, we are grateful that today the government has seen wisdom in those ideas that were espoused by the previous government, particularly the former vice president, to say that we need to back our city with our gold. And that was what was enshrined in the NPP manifesto. And so government is a continuum.
All right.
It is good that this government is continuing, but there are teething questions that have to be asked, like the ones I have raised, so that we all get clarity. Where there are shortfalls, we all provide ideas to see how best we can shape the whole thing. If Ghana succeeds, it succeeds for all of us. So, Gold Board is just a vehicle. The idea had been mooted already.
Prof. Lord Mensah, is that a legitimate concern?
Oh, yes. These are things that I do side with Gideon. I mean, he's an insider, more or less, almost an insider. I mean, being a parliamentarian and also being part of the finance committee. But then as a third party or an outsider sitting here, of course, I mean, it is a good policy. I can say that, look, I mean, for a government to run through portfolios of policies, I mean, sieve out the ones that are good and the ones that are bad and be able to continue with the ones that are good or tweak it a bit to continue with it is part of governance. And I would say, yes, that's what we need for the country, Ghana. So from where I sit, the details of it, I mean, as Gideon has espoused, in this communication, clearly, I mean, needs to be, questioned. Of course, in the budget, the minister made clear the availability of funds to Gold Board. But if Gold Board has exceeded, what has been allocated to it, then obviously it calls for questions. And obviously there can be answers to it because, Gold Board being on the market can also have access to funds that may not necessarily come from government. So all these things are things that needs to be put in place to ensure that the country, is on the right footing. But then for us to see an appreciation of, the Ghana city, I would say that, yes, indeed, it's a good thing for us. Again, we hope that the internal, real sector, aspect of the economy when it comes to government spending will kick in so that we see, a continuous direction of appreciation of the currency. If possible, see a stability, and that will go a long way to help us.
So it is possible this run will not last forever.
Well, it's not going to run forever because, for every currency, if you look at the technical analysis bit of it, the dynamics, is so sudden and it's so sharp a drop, for a country like Ghana to sustain. But like I told you earlier, we saw an upward surge in the cedi against the dollar, which was a depreciation. We are now seeing, an appreciation. And obviously, these are, trends that if any currency is going to find its stability, will go through. You're going to see an upward swing and downward swing, and over time, we'll have, stability. So we are hoping that the real sector of the Ghanaian economy, which has to do with agri sector, which has to do with the mining sector, the manufacturing, will kick in, within the fiscal year. So we can see the true impact of the appreciation that we are witnessing.
Prof, thank you so much. And again, congratulations on your appointment as head of the local government services, Professor Lord Mensah there. We also heard Dr. Gideon Boakon. He's Member of Parliament for Tanor North and was technical advisor to Vice President Dr. Mamadou Bawumia during the administration of the MPA. And he's asked very important questions that he wants the finance minister to respond. Why Gold Board was allocated $400 million for the purchase of gold, but has ended up doing over $3 billion United States dollars. These are legitimate questions that he thinks that some clarity must be sought on this particular matter. Let's take a short break here on the program. When we return, the Senior Staff Association of Public Universities are on an indefinite strike. We'll find out why when we return from this break. Welcome back. This is the Pulse here on JoyNews. Of course, we are live as well as on X Spaces, on YouTube, and of course on Facebook. Now, the Senior Staff Association of the University of Ghana chapter, in collaboration with the Technical University Administrators Association and also, as well as the Federation of University Senior Staff, they've declared an indefinite nationwide strike starting today. Now, the three unions have directed all members on the various university campuses to vacate their posts and stay home until further notice. They accuse both current and past governments of failing to honor a 6-month-old agreement aimed at improving their conditions of service and welfare, despite repeated follow-up. The strike impacts critical non-teaching staff in public and technical universities, including administrative officers, accountants, ICT staff, and the rest. We can listen to their concerns.
From us until the government pays or honors the agreement signed on the 12th of November 2024. Go home.
The leadership of the Senior Staff Association in Universities of Ghana, SSAU of G, the Technical University Administrators Association of Ghana, TUAG, and the Federation of University Senior Staff Association of Ghana, FUSAG, announce with deep regret but unwavering resolve our decision to embark on an indefinite strike action effective today, 21st May 2025. There's no need of re-signing anything, because when we signed, we were told they could not implement it at that time because of the closeness of the election. So when the new government came, we followed up. We were told the president is yet to select his ministers, so we should hold on. We said, fine. After the ministers, we followed up. They said they were going to factor it into the budget, so we should hold on. We said, fine. After the budget, we wrote letters. We followed it up with a meeting with the Minister of Education. He promised of following it up for it to be implemented as soon as possible. That has not come to pass. We followed it up at the Ministry of Finance. We were told the letter has been drafted. It's left with somebody to sign. Up till now, that letter has not been signed. Today is Wednesday. Monday, Fair Wages also invited us. And what they told us was that, yes, the current chief executive has just come and he has just had the first-hand information about it. And they are saying that until he endorses it, they cannot effect the implementation. And we said, so the one who handed over to you, didn't he give you any handing over notes? Or didn't he give you any brief? Fine. If now you know, what are you doing? Because per our information, the letter has been drafted. So if you know that it is the truth, why don't you endorse it for it to be implemented? For signing, just a signing of a letter, how many hours does it take for a letter to be signed? We see that it's a delay tactics that the government is playing with us, and we can't have it anymore.
Well, let's get some answers, and joining us via Zoom is the National Chairman of the Senior Staff Association, University of Ghana, George Anson. Mr. Anson, good afternoon and welcome. And if you can unmute for me, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, good to, right. So first, walk us through exactly what are you asking for? I mean, this is not the first time you've raised your issues, but what exactly are you asking for? This matter started somewhere last year. Hello, Mr. Anson.
All right, so yes. So it's not a University of Ghana, universities of Ghana to all.
Well, we'll have to get you to reposition yourself, Mr. Anson, so we can hear you well, and then so you can make the point. Hello, Mr. Anson. Well, we'll see if we can reconnect with him and then bring that conversation to you. Let's move to the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, because together with the Ghana Police Service and the National Security, they are clearing squatters at the Circle Neoplan Station enclave here in Accra. Now, tens of makeshift structures have been destroyed in the process. The operation is part of a decongestion exercise which began on Tuesday. We'll take you live to the grounds where James Abayi is monitoring the exercise, though he's been speaking to the operations manager at the Environmental Health Office of the AMA, Joseph Atinga.
This is one of the fridges that has been opened, and it contains bottled water with pan. I'm sure the person is yet to set off to market because the pan is still in the fridge with soft drinks as well as bottled water. Another one is opened at the other side, and it contains chilled water actually, which means that there's been electricity provision here, which they've been using to freeze their drinks and water to sell to the public. It is virtually frozen. It is unclear the source of power for this, but you see electric wires on the floor, which indicates that there is full life happening here. I just see a board there, an electric board there with a main switch, which I'm sure had been disconnected, and that is the source of power they use to power the fridges and other accessories here in order to help them undertake their work. The municipal health officer is still here at the center of all of this to oversee the work. I'm back to you again. Where do they get the power to power their accessories?
That is the question. They do this thing overnight, okay?
Have you been able to trace the source of the power?
Yeah, we did that. We traced it. They laid a power underground, and we tried to track. I think I have to bring the police. I have to let the police come. Hey, let the police come here. This woman be taken away.
There is a bit of confrontation. The ladies are insisting that the thing shouldn't be removed from the fridge. You trace the power to where?
We trace the power. You cannot determine and see where they connected it from. So, because of that, when we came, we tried to get access to the meter. So we took all the power off from the meter. They have a central meter. The meter is with us, AMA. It's in the office. We're going to use the meter to interrogate, to investigate, to find out whose name is on that meter. And that will be where we arrest whoever owns the meter and who is paying the electricity bills to.
So when you trace the cable, at a point it was buried underground?
Underground, we cannot track it.
I see.
Yes.
So have you found the owner of these drinks?
They have been adequately educated. They are even among us, but they are playing a game of we will go, and they will remain here. So based on that, we evacuate the things, take the fridge out, and the place will be empty.
Okay.
That's all. Because the whole thing is that they play a strategy like, as we are here, 30 minutes, it's not going to be the same thing here.
Okay.
Yes.
You see, they are still removing the drinks and the minerals, the soft drinks from the fridge, and they are packing them into this rubber here to convey as well. Boss, where are you taking that?
We are sending that thing to office.
So we want to put it down. We don't know the person, because if the person comes, We don't know. And so we want to give it to the police. And so if the person comes, it's going to take their fridge and this thing to go. It's not our fault. It's not for us. And so we can't take some.
So you are helping them to pack it?
I sell here. I sell my things here. They have throw all my things away.
What do you sell?
I sell lash nails and chains. They have packed all our things here. So I have 3 children. I'm looking at them. So that see the way they have scattered here. See the way they have do. See my stomach. I have 3 children. I'm looking at them. I can give them their pictures. They have gone to school. That's why. Like I'll bring them and you see them. I'm telling you, I do lash. I do everything. I can take my things come. They scatter all. I can take my lash card, give you. It's here. You can see it. Let's go. I want my witness.
Okay. Thank you. And so that's a lady. She said she does eyelashes and makeovers here, and all of her things have been thrown away already, and she's helping to secure the items of a friend. The owner of these items hasn't been known yet. They are trying to get to know who it belongs to, but the AMA is taking custody of all of this for now. The police are there supervising all of the activities. Chief, I saw you disconnecting some wires there.
Yes, they are using ECG meter, but they don't pay anything, give ECG. And I think it is illegal connection over here. And so I've disconnected everything over here. Because if you see the voltage they are using over here, it is very huge.
Have you been able to trace the source of the power?
No. Yes.
So I see a meter board there. Is that where they mount the meters and the switches?
Yes, but the meter didn't work at all.
You said the meters are for you.
It's for us.
Where did you get it from?
We go and buy it. I sell here. That's why I say I sell here. I do lash everything here. I can take my teeth come.
So who gave you the meter ECG? Who gave you the meter ECG? Turn this way for me.
The person who brought this, he work at Tisco, but the person have died. When he died, he leave it for us. And so every day we buy carrot, put inside. If we sell all of us.
So it's prepaid.
It's prepaid.
All right. So those are some of them. Yes, claiming that they brought the meters. They got it from someone. A deceased person who gave it to them. They came to install here and they are using. But from my little knowledge, I'm told that you cannot move electricity of Ghana meters from one place to the other. But that's what they are telling us. You see one prepaid meter still on the meter board there, with a number of fuse plugs as well as main switch there. One of the meter is still on the board there, still waiting for the authorities to take possession of and leave the vicinity. They are still destroying some of the structures there. And so that's the situation here. The police are here as well as the national security, we are told, and the AMA task force to oversee this destruction or demolition exercise. We are currently standing behind the bus stop here at opposite the new plant station, which the squatters have turned into an abode for themselves, where the authorities are currently demolishing. So that's the activity happening here at Circle.
All right, James, thank you so much for that for that report on the day 2 of the decongestion exercise. Now today they focus at Circle New Plant Station. Now another form of decongestion also took place somewhere around the Atomic Roundabout. Now authorities, they began pruning weak and overgrown branches along the Atomic Wabinya Road, marking several mahogany and fragile trees for removal. The move follows concerns that some trees now weakened pose a risk to motorists. And if you've been using that road like I do almost on a daily basis, whenever it rains, the place is flooded. Some of the tree branches will fall and then will create some danger for motorists and pedestrians. Now, overgrown branches have overtangled with power lines, increasingly safety hazards. However, the decision has sparked strong criticism from environmental groups. Arosa Ghana condemned the exercise, calling it environmental sabotage and shameful. They demand an immediate halt to the tree felling along the Atomic Hatch stretch and insist on a clear, enforceable replanting plan. Marshal witnessed the exercise, and this is his report.
The usual traffic here at the Atomic First Gate and the Kabinda Pollution deforestation stretch is conspicuously missing. What is, however, striking here is the many mahogany and other trees that have formed a canopy on the stretch. But some days ago, the Ghana Forestry Commission gave permission for some of the trees to be cut down for safety purposes. We are told some of them pose a risk to motorists, especially with the onset of the rains. Some of the trees here are also disturbing the electricity cables here. But environmentalists are not happy about the decision.
But you see, we lack vision as a people. Because when the trees are growing, what we need to do is to plant new ones in between them. You understand? When we plant new trees in between them, when these things are grown, then it can be taken care of. You can cut them easily. So I love trees. I'm a lover of trees. In my house, we have a lot of trees there. So you can classify me as an environmentalist. We need to be educated about the value of trees. And if that education is not there, people will disregard the essence of trees, you understand. In Ghana today, I don't think that a lot of people value trees. That is why they cut them off at random. There's the need for us to start a vigorous education for households to have trees in their houses, for streets to have, trees in the eyes of the streets and all that, on motorway and the trees, all around, so that we can protect the environment, we can protect ourselves.
This is causing a threat to the community, especially with regards to the agenda on climate change, on cutting down of these trees, because one way or the other, they contribute to climate change effect. So cutting down on these trees is inappropriate, it's not the best. Our activities in protecting the environment is not much. Therefore, I think much effort needs to be done to this effect. So cutting down the trees is not an alternative.
Executive Director of the environmental group, Darrell Bosu, is calling on authorities to provide a comprehensive plan that provides details about replanting of the trees that will be cut down here. He says this will help to protect the environment.
We have, because of that discussion, been paying close attention. But even after that, we've seen that there's been also some bits of interventions here and there by the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission from time to time with in mind that they want to really prune the trees, and also sometimes they have indicated they want to remove the trees. And this is where we've had really some serious concerns, because we think that yes, those trees there need to be managed. They are trees by the roadside, they look beautiful, they provide a significant benefit, they clean the air, they cool the environment. Once you drive through that area, you can be driving in from the hot sun. Once you get under those trees, you can feel the difference in the coolness of the air. So we are really happy that those trees are there. And interestingly, the trees were planted by the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission several years back. So you expect that we'll put in place a mechanism to protect them. And protection here meaning that we ensure that the root systems are well grounded, they are steady, and also the trees are from time to time pruned so that they don't become a hazard to also the electric cables and also even to commuters and to motorists using that stretch. But what we have seen is that that is never done. Then there's also the issue of the plans to really cut down trees. We have assessed the stretch of that particular area where the trees are. And what we have noticed is that there are no drainages along that particular stretch of road. So when it rains, water collects under the root system, making the trees unstable. And that's why every little wind comes and you see a tree falling. This can be prevented if you had put in a maintenance regime. I think for me, striking a balance starts with maintenance.
Okay.
If we plant trees, and we have all agreed that let's plant trees within the median and the sides of our roads. It's a very beautiful thing. It cools the environment, it also improves the air quality around where there are vehicles. It starts with maintenance and management of the trees. We can't just plant the trees and forget about them. And that is where the problem. So we can really do both by making sure that we manage and maintain the trees appropriately. That's the only solution to that.
Well, let's stay a little longer with the environment and deal with climate issues, because in our focus today, a third-generation commercial user of charcoal as one of Accra's busiest eateries, has shared a heartwarming story about their willingness to abandon charcoal and fully transition to gas. Now, this comes at a time of growing concern over the health and environmental impact of continued charcoal and firewood use in cooking. For these two sisters, a strong government commitment to making LPG or gas accessible is all they need to make the switch, regardless of the cost. James Avaji has more in this report.
The German Agency for International Cooperation, GIZ, in 2023 revealed in a research that firewood and charcoal contribute at least 39% of source of energy for cooking in Ghana. This means about 100,000 football fields of trees are cleared every year for firewood and charcoal. To find out more, I visit a chopper here in Accra to hear their story. I meet Nanama and her sister Sandra, a third-generation owners of the popular heavy-do chopper.
49 years ago, we started with firewood. That's what we started with. And then we moved from firewood to charcoal. And the reason was firewood produces a lot of heat and then a lot of smoke. And working around the environment is very hot because of the excessive heat the firewood produces. So we moved to charcoal. So when we moved to charcoal and then technology also came in and technology was growing, we moved from charcoal to gas. So we stopped charcoal and moved to gas.
So why did they switch back to charcoal after finding comfort in LPG?
I think 10 years back we had some gas shortage in Ghana. So we bought 2 bags of charcoal and we used it to cook. So after cooking, we realized that the cost of using the charcoal was a bit okay than the gas. So that was when we introduced the use of the gas and the charcoal at the same time. Yes.
A decade-old energy and green transition minister John Abdullah Jinapo reveals another LPG shortage in Ghana 4 years ago worsened the situation.
2021 and 2022, because LPG prices increased by over 80%, the consumption of LPG declined by about 12%. And then the consumption of wood fuels also increased astronomically. And so it's not just an economic burden, it's also a health issue, it's also an environmental issue.
The problem, however, is beyond cost. The persistent allegation of cheating at the refilling stations is also another challenge to customers.
We had some challenges. One, sometimes when you go to the gas station to fill the cylinders, it doesn't get full, but you pay the full amount. We've used it for some time, and then we know when we fill this kg, it can do this and this and this. But sometimes when you can, maybe you have like 12.5 kg, you know you can cook about 3 pots of cassava, but you end up cooking 1.5 and it's finished. And you're like, why? What's wrong? What's going on?
By now, Nanama, her sister, and their mother had taken a business decision: minimize the use of LPG and increase charcoal. As a result, they take delivery of hundreds of bags of charcoal every week, especially from the eastern region.
This is how the pot is, and so this is cassava and plantain in here. So in a day we can use 1 bag to cook 3 of this, depending on how good or the quality of the charcoal, and then the quality of the cassava. Some of the cassavas too, they are very hard, so you need more charcoal to So you need more charcoal to help it cook. So it depends on the quality of the cassava and then the quality of the charcoal. So we have 12.5 kg, which cost us 260 cedis. And with this, it takes us 2 days. So every 2 days, we need to fill it and use.
But you use it for what?
For just warming the food. We don't use it to cook, to just keep the soup warm.
Right, so on that note, on our climate series, let's take a short break and return with more. Well, we are winding down. Let's deal with some few stories before we go. A non-profit organization, Moving Health, has donated medical equipment, computers, and other essential items to support hands-on midwifery training at the Tumu Midwifery Training College. The donation valued at over 250,000, include 5 desktop, 3 crank hospital beds, and other things to make, hospital and attending to patients more, appropriate. Now, according to Moving Health, Isaac Amwa Ganza, the gesture is aimed at equipping future midwives with practical tools to handle life-threatening emergencies. And of course, Rafik Salam has more in this report.
Moving Health is a non-profit organization that has a mixture of social and community health workers and engineers who come together to design, fabricate, and deploy affordable emergency transportation for rural areas. They have been working in the Sisala East municipality since 2019, where they manufactured tricycle ambulances to serve rural communities in Ghana, particularly supporting pregnant women in reaching emergency care. The organization's mission is to ensure that everyone, regardless of their location, can access health care when they need it most. Chief Executive Officer of Moving Health, Azikama Kwansa, speaking at a ceremony to donate medical equipment, computers, and training for students of Tuma Midwifery Training College and midwives, noted the significant successes chalked by its outfit with the donation of the tricycle ambulance.
We've been able to make strides in helping reduce the maternal mortality rate in the municipal assembly through our ambulances deployed to the various CHIP compounds. Today we have about 21 ambulances in the region itself, connecting about 100,000 people and family to the next care of health when they need it most.
Azikama Kwansa then zeroed in on the donation of the medical equipment and computers valued at 250,000 Ghana cedis.
Moving Health has donated close to over 250,000 Ghana cedi worth of items, which includes the 25 computers to set up the new computer lab, and also a lot of medical training equipment to refurbish the new lab. This will not end here. We've been in the municipality for almost, let's say, from 2009, and we've been working with the Ghana Health Service a lot in all our operations. But now we want to integrate the midwifery school training into our ambulance program because the midwives are the end users of our products. So this is not going to be a one-time relationship.
The items donated included 14 UPS units, 3 crank hospital beds, 2 multi-purpose delivery beds, a 50-liter autoclave machine, an automated pregnant mannequin, adult male mannequin, and other essential items to support hands-on midwifery education. Principal of the Tuma Midwifery Training College, Mary Saratu Adama, was grateful for the donation. She spoke of the benefits the students will derive from the usage of the items.
Enable the students practice on hand with the mannequins as to how to deliver, how to attend to patients. And so the donation will go a long way to benefit us in the way we practice. Because they will have to practice this theory and practice. So after going through the theoretical aspect, they will go to the skills lab and practice, demonstrate what was taught.
Also excited were the students.
It's not sufficient. And for that reason, students they can't practice as expected. So with these donated items, I think it will give a platform to each and every student to be able to go to the lab and practice with regards to that of the computers as well.
Sisala East Municipal Director of Health Services, Clifford Venkungmani, also lauded Moving Health for the initiative.
Some midwifery practices, you can get them from the skill lab. Then the computer skills, you get them from the computer lab. That bakes you, that cooks you. When you complete your school and you find yourself on the field, you will not be found wanting.
Vice President of the Tumo Traditional Council, Kuro Zakaria Zave, also addressed the function.
I want to admonish the principal and management of the college. Whilst Moving Health attempts to do all of this, we should reciprocate the gesture by instituting proper mental health culture. It is only fair and proper that we do this so that we can continue to encourage. I'm sure no one will want to pour water on a rock.
Moving Health, with support from the Twatula Fund, sponsored a training for midwives and midwifery students focused on manual removal of retained placenta and manual vacuum aspiration MVA. Reporting for JoyNews, Rafiq Salam, Tumu.
Well, some other stories, and over 5,000 women across hundreds of villages in the Savannah region have escaped abject poverty through strategic self-help intervention by the Berefo Women Empowerment Association, with a strong commitment to uplifting additional 20,000 more women by 2026. The association is strongly appealing for government, philanthropic and NGO support to provide employable skills, soft loans and agricultural input to sustain and scale its impact in the poverty-riddled district. There's more in this report.
With over 7,000 members across hundreds of communities, the Berefo Women Empowerment Association in the Savannah region is racing against time to lift poor women out of abject poverty through mechanized farming, vocational training, and other support systems. While the association has already succeeded in helping over 1,000 women escape extreme poverty through community-based credit facility interventions, lack of startup capital, limited access to farm inputs, and poor market access remain major obstacles to lifting thousands more from the shackles of poverty.
When it comes to farming in Savannah region, it's very difficult for us. So we are appealing to NGOs and we are appealing to our big men like Ibrahim Mama, Kennedy, Japan. As women, we are pleading, come into our aid so that when it comes to farming, we have tractors available so that at affordable price so that we can purchase farming tools like weedicide, condemn, so that the farming system in Savannah region, as for we the women, can be easy for us.
Talking of trading, tailoring, weaving, and then hairdressing, sometimes we suffer to learn the work, and when we are done, how to get the capital to start the business is very hard. So we end up roaming aimlessly and farming. So in order to get our own capital to start our own business is through farming. And we all know that farming in Ghana here is very hard. Sometimes we even gather the crops from the farm, and how to sell it is a problem.
Most of our women have been trained into this course, that is this soap making and then pastry making. But in the long run, we don't get the capital to start up our own businesses, which is killing the Savannah regional women.
PRO of the association, Paul Jorobon, revealed they aim to lift 3,000 more women out of poverty by 2026 through self-initiatives.
Specifically in Savannah region here, we are engulfed with poverty. And so if we put about 100 women together, you see 95 of them being engulfed by poverty. And so because we are predominantly farmers here, our target is that by 2026 thereabout, we should be able to empower about 3,000 women. How do we then do that? That is why we have started this self-initiative by grouping ourselves, because when you are united, you are in a group, an individual who is resource-oriented can come to your aid.
The association's founder and Nakpala Assembly member, Yanni Moses, is calling for expanded market for shea nuts and other farm produce.
Currently, as we speak, we have over 7,000 women, and with this we are asking for more financiers to come and support these women to sell their nut to them at a better price. So the price they sell to the other groups or the other companies is too bad.
Businessman and philanthropist Richard Abdullahi Kara asserts that access to credit and modern farming techniques are essential to lifting the women out of poverty.
It is high time we injected some innovations into farming beyond just the hoe and cutlass. And this can be a ground and a stepping stone where we could introduce other modernized way of doing agriculture. But like I have said, the base of all these things that we are talking about is when credit facilities are made available at very reduced rates and accessible to the people of these communities and onto this group.
Emmanuel Jorobon emphasized the need for agro input.
The farming these days is so challenging, especially when it comes to agricultural input. It is very expensive to acquire. So we are calling on benevolence and other NGOs that it's high time they should come to the north, the Savannah region, to also help our women.
The call for support is loud and clear. These women need real investment in agribusiness, easier access to capital and agro-processing facilities to secure ready market. For JoyNews, Carlos Kaloni, Bogda in the Savannah region.
Well, let's do some other stuff. And Former Global implements the Youth Elevate project to promote and sustain agriculture, an agribusiness institution. They've implemented targeted at providing support to young people that is aimed to transform and sustain agriculture. The intervention project is designed to present farming as business model to the youth, train them in smart farming techniques, and provide them with incentive. Fred Kwame Asari has more in this report.
Some of the major factors preventing the youth from engaging in farming are outmoded farming methods, lack of finance, and technical issues. It is also perceived farming is uneconomic and inefficient to sustain lives, hence young people tend to migrate to bigger cities in search of greener pastures. In this vein, Farmer Global developed the Youth Elevate project aiming to change the narrative and make farming attractive to young people. The project being implemented in 4 districts in the Volta region is targeted at training some 5,000 young people in smart practices in crop, fishing, and livestock farming. The first cohorts of the project were presented with startup kits consisting of farming inputs.
We want them to be the new school farmers who farm as a business, taking into consideration financial literacy as part of our key training deliverables, and more importantly, getting them oriented towards, value addition. So, as part of our program, we promote value addition. They're going beyond the raw materials of the processing. So for those who are into the rice production, for instance, we are encouraging them to go beyond just the production into processing. Connect them with the other processing plants for them to process, and then help them to come out with brands that sell, that add value, so that they can.
The Home Municipal Chief Executive, Stephen Adum, lauded the initiative and shed light on his objective to enhance agriculture in his jurisdiction.
During my confirmation as the MC of the municipality, I indicated that I will make agriculture a great, very, very important in our municipality. Wow. And I mean it. I mean it. I am not joking. I'm a very active man, and I think that is the way to go.
The Volta Regional Agricultural Director, William Jamepe, entreated the beneficiaries to put the kits to good use. Fred Kwame Asari, JoyNews.
Well, she turned her birthday into a blessing for the children who needed it most. At the Chosen Children's Center, multimedia journalist and news anchor Denisia Pomaje chose to give back to those she closely identifies with, children without parents. Driven by empathy and personal experience, she donated essential everyday items to support the orphans, whilst also calling on government to empower them with skills that can boost their future prospects. There's more in this.
It was a birthday with a difference at the Chosen Children's Center. Instead of a party, gifts, or cake with friends, text producer, presenter, and voiceover artist Denisia Pomaje spent her day giving rather than receiving. Her reason? She's walked this road before. Poma is an orphan herself, But unlike many, she had the blessing of knowing her parents, at least for a while. Driven by empathy and experience, she chose to pour into those who may have never had the chance, donating essential everyday items to support them, while also calling on the government to empower them with skills that can boost their future prospects.
I'm an orphan myself. My mother died some 17 years ago, and my dad died last year, so I'm just like them. What inspired me to do that was because this year, my birthday, I decided to just celebrate my birthday with people of my kind. I also think the government can do its bit by providing some sort of skills training for these orphans, because, it shouldn't end at them being at an orphanage and being fed and all that. Thank you to everybody that helped to make this work. It wasn't just Denicia, it was Denicia and every other person that loved and bought into the idea.
Prophet Dr. Wisdom Makini commended Poma for putting smiles on the faces of the orphans and urged Ghanaians to emulate her kind gesture.
The Bible says in Proverbs 19:17 that any gift, any help unto the poor is a loan unto him, the Lord. And he, the Lord, will repay the people. So if you know this, that anything that you are doing for the needy, the Lord will repay you in myriad of fold. When you are doing it, you should do it from the free heart.
The orphanage also showed their appreciation.
I'm really happy to have Denicia's donate over here. We are so grateful to them, and we really appreciate her and her family for bringing all these wonderful items to the children. We are really grateful.
The children were elated, their smiles infectious, and in giving joy, Poma found her own, reminding us that sometimes the best birthdays are the ones we share.
Well, that's our show for today, but there's more stories on myjoyonline.com. We've got verified NDC government has added less than 1 ton of gold to reserve since January 2025. University senior staff declare a definite strike over unfulfilled agreements, and Supreme Court dismisses another suit against CJ removal process as unmeritorious. Folks, that's our show for today. Whatever you are up to in the hours ahead, I hope is profitable. Same time tomorrow, we shall be here to bring another exciting edition of the Pulse. Until then, keep the faith alive. My name is Elton Bobby. Take care and good evening.